well. Welcome to the We Read the Documents live stream. Your host, John Brisson. Thank you for being a subscriber. If you want to support my work, buymeacoffee/We've Read. All donations are appreciated. If you want to subscribe to our work, search We Read the Documents on Odyssey, Patreon, Substack, YouTube, Rumble. Substack gives you the most access to my content. You get access to my written work and my podcast streams as well through Spotify. Oh, so look, it's Tucker Carlson's former Kabbalah rabbi, Rabbi Schmilich. Everybody loves Rabbi Schmilich, right? LGBTQ against anti-Semitism and for Israel. So let's see what little Rabbi Schmilich's doing here.
All the groups are marching with the LGBTQ for Israel to highlight the great bastion of human rights that Israel is. Imagine any of our Palestinian brothers and sisters ever marching with any LGBTQ citizens. And it's an impossibility. And if you don't get it, and you don't get Israel, you don't get the conflict, you don't get what Hamas would do to innocent men and women who happen to be gay or lesbian, they would be slaughtered, decapitated, castrated, God forbid. But Israel, man, IDF baby, protects their lives. IDF all the way! All the groups.
The Rabbi Schmilich both teaches an inherent of Rebbe Menachem Schneerson's teaching as Chabad. He also believes in the Noahide laws, which homosexuality would be pushed by death. So, that's very interesting, Rabbi Schmilich Botich. It's almost like you're a joker of some sort, right? And he very much is. He's a living embodiment of a joke. So I'm not going to give too much context here. You guys listen to me for years know what I think about all this, okay? It's just quite interesting, the mockery, the heights of the mockery that Rabbi Schmilich Botich goes to, okay? He's just so disgusting at everything that he does. He's such a liar and a fraud. When El Salvador's Bukele, a hero for the American right, isn't showing the world. Victor Barahona was grateful when soldiers started rounding up gang members who had long terrorized this working-class city. No longer would his grandchildren pass drug deals or be startled from sleep by the crack of gunfire. But when El Salvador's military started hauling away neighbors Barahona knew had no connection to the gangs, he spoke out criticizing the arrests on his community radio program. Soon after, police rapped on his door, Barahona said, as he was handcuffed and sent to prison with no access to lawyers, no contact with family, and no clear sense of the charges against him. He recalls seeing inmates being tortured and guards hauling dead bodies from the cells while he lived on meager portions of noodles and beans. He'd rather lodge a complaint with the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. When he released almost a year later, 70 pounds lighter and with no explanation, Barahona was alarmed to see that President Nayib Bukele was winning global praise for bringing peace and prosperity to El Salvador with his iron fist security strategy heralded by American conservatives such as President Donald Trump. A 43-year-old former admin first elected in a landslide in 2019, Bukele has been largely successful in rebranding El Salvador from a poor backwater plagued by murderous gangs into an innovative and safe nation that he compares to Singapore. In prolific social media posts, he presents himself like a tech CEO, disruptor-in-chief willing to break norms and create what he terms a new history. But for all his modern trappings, his embrace of Bitcoin, TikTok, and slick promotional videos, Bukele's critics say he's just following the playbook of previous Latin American strongmen, including the military leaders who ruled El Salvador as a dictatorship from 1931 until 1980s. And Trump himself is a strong man. Trump himself has an assassination with strong men around the world. Again, Satan is the archetype of the strong man, right? Bukele jails opponents, fires judges, and has been implicated in corruption. He pushed a court decision that paved the way for his re-election, even through the country's constitution prohibits it. Last week, he launched a crackdown on nonprofits, calling for 30% of their donations to be taxed. He's not a divergent, said Noah Bullock, the director of Cristosal, a human rights group. He governs in the same way that past dictators and uses the same instruments of power. It's a regime that tortures and kills and disseminates fear. There's little doubt that Bukele's mass arrest starting in 2022 helped dismantle the gangs that were once held this country in a chokehold, and for that most Salvadorians are thankful. But as part of his security push, will include to ask Salvadorians to denounce suspected terrorists via an anonymous tip line. Tens of thousands of innocent people were wrongfully detained, human rights groups say. While polls showed most Salvadorans support Bukele, they also show the majority fear retribution as they express their views. We used to be afraid of the gangs, Barahona said as he walked through a popa where rifle-toting soldiers are posted every few blocks. Now he said, we're afraid of the state. San Salvador, a lush city that lies in the shadow of a dormant volcano, has been buzzing in recent years with the clatter of construction. The country's main hospital is getting a facelift, and crews are renovating colonial buildings. A new library donated by China looms over the central square where the children splash in a fountain and boleros play with speakers hidden among trees. It's very interesting. So we have a new library donated by China. So El Salvador is also working with the Chinese, too. Bukele has promoted the changes here among the Pacific coast, now serving Mecca as evidence El Salvador is thriving. Last year, the country welcomed a record 3.9 million tourists, including cryptocurrency evangelicists drawn by Bukele's short-lived experiment in making Bitcoin a legal tender. While he spent big on cosmetic changes, Bukele has slashed budgets for health and education. Dozens of schools and community clinics have been shuttered. Ivan Solano Livia, the director of El Salvador's Medical Association, said Bukele has emphasized constructing an image over meeting basic needs. As Bukele touted the purchase of state-of-the-art hospital equipment, wait times to see specialists lengthened, Solano said, and doctors have been pressured not to write prescriptions because of drug shortages. What's the point of having the latest technology if I don't even have the staff to operate it, he said. Bukele has beefed up state-owned news outlets would broadcast pro-Bukele content and have prominent social media influencers on their payrolls. Behind TikTok's touting improvements lie bleak statistics. The poverty rate rose from 26.8% in 2019 to 30.3% in 2023. The country has the lowest levels of economic growth and foreign investment in all of Central America, worse even than nearby Nicaragua, a dictatorship that's been pummeled by U.S. sanctions. While Bukele can claim some impressive projects like a towering new Google office in San Salvador, we have Google, we have Ripple's involvement in El Salvador. Shaky rule of law has spooked other investors, said an advisor to foreign companies who spoke on the condition of anonymity. They feel too much risk. The perils for businesses were clear this month after a highway renovation disrupted traffic and Bukele declared on X that transportation will be free nationwide. When some bus companies failed to comply, Bukele ordered the arrest of 16 company owners on charges of sabotage. They remained in jail. On a recent scorching afternoon, Eric Mendoza, 42, was waiting for a bus with her disabled husband. Mendoza, who earns $8 a day, says she was grateful for the help with bus fare, and she didn't expect Bukele to solve El Salvador's long-standing economic problems overnight. If there's money, we eat. If there's not, we don't, she said. This is the life, and we're used to it. Instead of residing in the National Palace, Bukele lives in a modern home in a luxury compound called Los Sinless, the Dreams. In recent years, his government has brought up multiple lots in the neighborhood to build what government officials say will be a new presidential residence. Enrique Ania, a constitutional attorney who has criticized Bukele's mass firings of judges and suspension of rights, said it's clear that his mission is clearly to stay in power as long as possible and to make himself scandalously rich. A recent investigation by the journalist Jamie Quintanilla revealed that Bukele and his family purchased 34 properties valued at $9 million during his first presidential term. Bukele, who ran as an anti-corruption crusader, vowed to break with past leaders on the left and right implicated in graft, has denied insinuations that he's enriched himself in office, calling critics imbeciles. For some, the case is also another example of the wide gap between the image of El Salvador that Bukele is selling in reality. So very much Trump is making craft prosper, right? If Bukele is staged as the forerunner, he's also causing craft to prosper, and he is getting wealthy and rich off the backs of his people in El Salvador, is he not? Just like Trump is getting rich off the backs of the people in America. A significant evidence that Bukele's biggest accomplishment of all, reducing crime in El Salvador, was just a result of his punished security strategy. Journalists and U.S. officials say that Bukele's first term as administration negotiated with gangs to bring down killings to generate votes in his party. Is Trump doing the same with MS-13? Me and Billy will cover that Sunday. In 2021, the United States Treasury Department slapped sanctions against Bukele's Vice Minister of Justice and the top presidential aide for cutting deals with leaders of MS-13 and Barrio 18 gangs. This month, the news site El Faro published a video that showed a gang member known as El Charlie say that he received money from Bukele party for votes. It's unclear whether everyday Salvadorians care how exactly peace was achieved. Andres Hernandez, 50, was forced to abandon his home in Apopa 15 years ago because the gangs were trying to recruit his young son. We suffered so much, he said. Finally, we can breathe. Hernandez says he hopes to vote for Bukele for a third term. I want him to stay forever. Juan Melendez, director of the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy in El Salvador, said many of the compatriots seem open to exchanging their rights for security. something he attributes to the country's long history of authoritarian rule. Democracy, he said, was an abstract concept to many Salvadorians, while safer streets was a concrete benefit. Meanwhile, about 110,000 people, nearly 2% of El Salvador's population, languish in jail. One of them is Rene Marcirio Tadio Serrano, 37, who was arrested in 2022 while working at a factory in the coastal province of Libertad. It's been nearly 3 years since his mother, Maria Serrano, 60, has heard from him. She has diabetes but walks the streets daily in search for work, laundering clothes to pay for a $150 monthly package family members must buy so their loved ones in jail can have basic items like toilet paper and soap. On recent mornings, Serrano stood outside the prosecutor's office begging for information on her son's case alongside dozens of other mothers whose children have disappeared. She thinks it's only a matter of time before more people see the cost of Bukele's rule. It's a lie that we're freeing El Salvador, she said. These people who are in favor of him haven't had their hearts broken yet. It's been a while since we checked up on Melissa Redpill the World, Freedom Force. Now I've been following her on Twitter lately and seeing her blasphemic posts. I've done previous streams. You can search back. But she says, check out the purple carpet. They know Trump is true royalty. Check out the research on President Trump's lineage on freedomforce.live. He's literally from both sides of the tribe of Judah. It appears the Saudi Arabians know that. This is biblical. Now, it's interesting that Saudi Arabia did give him the purple carpet, right? The synergy carpet, right? The seventh-fold reign of Saint Germain purple, right? The false Holy Spirit color. Okay. Well, would you look at that? President Trump, truth about public military tribunals. Could this have anything to do with Comey and treason? Justice is coming. Jubilee is coming. So, yes, she's pushing the same narrative as Bo Poloni Pony, Bill Poloni, pushing, Jubilee, being with a financial system. Everybody's getting rich. Everybody's getting paid. And here, what if the Antichrist is not an individual? What if the Antichrist is not the future, but is here already? What if the Antichrist is the New World Order cabal? What if the Antichrist system is run by Diddy and Epstein parties to control politicians and celebrities? What if they lied to us on purpose to cause us to stand down? That sounds like what they would do. The Great Awakening marks the end for them and 1,000 years of peace for us. So there we have a go again, the 1,000-year not the 1,000 year of Jesus Christ, but the 1,000 years of peace, 1,000 years of reign, that the adherents to the Great Awakening, whether they realize it or not, are pushing. They believe Satan's victory over Jesus Christ, which is not biblical. It will not happen at all. But I've covered, the 1,000 years of darkness if Donald Trump didn't win the election and where that comes from, and the inversion of the false Great Awakening, 1,000 years of peace. So again, they're pushing that the Antichrist is not a person, as the Bible clearly says that it is, but it is a system. And the system is the current world order being defeated, but they're calling it the New World Order. Okay, so that's how they're going to frame it and how they're going to get people yoked up with the Antichrist to take the mark, because the cabal, the New World Order, has finally fallen. However, we know based off of the Bible, you have the Harlot, which is the current world order, the Zionist, Jesuit, Freemasonic world order, headquarters in Jerusalem. And then you have the New World Order, or the beast system, which comes that replaces that, right? So she's literally setting up people to accept that coming beast system. That's satanic. That's evil. We should pray for Melissa Redpill because she is not saved. She is not born again. She is a deceiver. She is setting up for people to take this. She's setting up for people to take the mark. She's setting up people to be damned to hell for all eternity. She's setting up people to yoke themselves up with the Antichrist and the beast system. We have to harp on this. We have to harp on this. We have to harp on this about the false Great Awakening, okay? Because that's what they're pushing. Yes, Carl Hassel, all things older, new again. Or as the Who says, new boss, same as the old boss. Okay? Yes, obviously, I've read from Revelation that we are supposed to rejoice when God's judgment comes against the harlot, when the harlot is destroyed, when God's judgment comes against Jerusalem, which I believe to be Mystery Babylon. But we don't yoke ourselves up with the Antichrist. We don't yoke ourselves up with the beast. We don't take the mark. We don't, join the beast system. Now, I do believe in the mid-tribulation rapture that we will be raptured out. But if that doesn't happen and there is an in-tribulation rapture, post-tribulation rapture, then we don't take it. And we should, hopefully preach to the people that may become tribulation saints after the mid-tribulation rapture not to take the mark, right? That this is all deception, right? Okay, but it's what they're pushing. It's what they're pushing. Representative James Comer says staffers behind Biden's Autopin scandal, when he was clearly in mental decline, have been identified. Warrant subpoenas are coming.
You are going and looking at who is controlling this Autopin, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof, many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient, many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the Autopin. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the Autopin, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the Autopin. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline.
Now, obviously, Obama is not the only president to use Autopin signatures. Barack Obama signed various legislation using an Autopin. But they're trying to push it as such that only Biden has ever used an Autopin. So there you go. Here's J.D. Vance on Biden's cancer diagnosis. And yes, the president has numerous screenings as health screenings as a president does. They were obviously checking Biden's prostate specific antigen levels at his age. He's had stage 4 prostate cancer, for a while. He's had prostate cancer during his presidency. I'm not for sure, but you can take a very strong, accurate guess that that is the case for it to progress for so long and acting like they did not know it or they were unaware of it. But, you also have the video floating around of Biden, during his presidency saying that he had cancer, right? So it's obvious that he had cancer and was likely being treated for cancer while he was president. How they would have missed his prostate cancer through various PSA and doctor screenings of such, and the yearly, every few years screening that he would get at his age of his prostate. I think that they covered this up. There's no doubt about it in my mind. There's a possibility that it just got discovered here recently, but the math ain't mathin', all right? And so they're going to use that in a combination that Biden's presidency was illegitimate. Okay, so let's see what J.D. Vance has to say about this.
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in a good enough.
But there are numerous examples also of Trump's current cognitive decline. Now, if he is the Antichrist, obviously Satan's going to enter into him. Supernaturally, that cognitive decline would go away, as far as his age and his abilities, as far as his health waning is concerned. But, Trump isn't the sharpest tool in the shed either, okay? If we're talking about whether or not Trump has the mental capacity to be president. Obviously, I think his mental capacity is not as strong as Biden's, but they're going to bring up the 25th Amendment. The Democrats should have, and the Republicans, even themselves, should have invoked the 25th Amendment against Biden. You could argue the Democrats now should invoke the 25th Amendment against Trump. But, you're going to have that war of delegitimizing all of Biden's presidency. That Trump was president from 2016 until now. Trump's alluded as such from 45 to 46 to 47. Shouldn't surprise anybody. It's just playing to a whole bunch of larger narratives, right? So.
In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is a guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest arsenal. This is not child's play, and we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a safe
So there you go. This is the guy who carries around the nuclear football, again, bringing up nuclear weapons again. The world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play. So, sorry about the audio, you guys. So JD Vance is saying we really need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. I don't think he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. You can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whatever it was, doctors or whatever, there were staffers around the former president. I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people, and that's not politics. It's not because I disagree with him on policy. That's because I don't think he was in good enough health. And why didn't the American people, have better sense of his health picture? Or why didn't the American people have more accurate information what he's actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. Okay. So, wow, two topics I never thought would discuss in the White House briefing room. One, the Clinton body count, so they're pushing Clinton. Trump truthed about Clinton earlier. I'm going to show you about that later. And Epstein's title to Israel. Well done, Mossad hedge. So zero hedge, right? Let's see here.
Thank you. And my only other question for you is, so over the weekend, President Trump posted Truth Social a video highlighting what most people call the Clinton body count, which is the strange number of suicides that seem to happen in Clinton circles. I have a headline here from the Washington Post that said, Trump peddles false conspiracy theories tying the Clintons to several deaths. So I just wanted to highlight real quick, this wasn't in Trump's video, but this is from the Arkansas Times, and it's the death of Mark Middleton, who was a former Clinton White House aide, who was found dead on a Clinton Foundation property. And I'll just quote from the Arkansas Times. Middleton apparently shot himself in the chest with a shotgun and also hung himself from a tree with an extension cord. So I have no idea how somebody commits suicide that way, but if the Washington Post is here, maybe you can enlighten us as to how that was actually a suicide. So anyways, that's just a lead into my question about the most famous Clinton-related suicide, which is that of Jeffrey Epstein. There's still a lot of questions around that case. You've released phase 1 of the Epstein files. What was missing from that is any connection to his ties to intelligence agencies, and that's really the whole story, that not just trafficking young girls, but doing it on behalf of intelligence agencies, and even potentially as part of a blackmail ring with potential ties to the Israeli government. So for phase 2, when can we expect it? Will it have information pertaining to those aspects of the Epstein case?
I know the Attorney General has committed to releasing those files. I would defer you to the Department of Justice on her timeline, but when she's made a promise in the past, she has kept it, and I'm certain that she will in this case as well. Rachel.
Continuing with the Epstein files list, and Levitt deferring to Pam Bondi. And of course, in all of this, we have the Council for National President Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. I suspect we're going to find out it was diagnosed before he was elected president, just like his dementia, talking about the cancer diagnosis, right? So there you go, kind of, playing all aspects. And then, with that in its completion, leftists who question whether real Donald Trump was shot are telling the rest of us we're not allowed to ask questions about the timing of Biden's cancer diagnosis. Well, that just doesn't sum it up with just a pretty bow, does it not? Ops on ops on ops on ops, my friends. Rabbi David Katz from the Israel Heritage Foundation, we don't just accomplish, we do. At the Israel Heritage Foundation and Eretz Shiva Summit, Rabbi David Katz praised his steadfast support for Israel, honoring leaders and friends devoted to Jewish people in the land of Israel. Rabbi David Katz delivered a heartfelt address at the Israel Heritage Foundation and a Eretz Shiva Summit, emphasizing the importance of unity and unwavering dedication to Israel and the Jewish people. In Yiddish, we said, we might be able to accomplish everything, but at the very least, we must act, Rabbi Katz remarked, echoing the mission of the Israel Heritage Foundation to unite diverse segments of the Jewish community under one roof. Reflecting on the night of the pivotal U.S. election, Rabbi Katz shared a personal anecdote. I was invited to Florida on election night. Rabbi Katz was invited to Mar-a-Lago VIP section with Trump. Really? The same group that thinks that Trump's the Mashiach. Friends warned me not to waste my time and money saying President Trump will not win, but I told him with God's help, he will. He described the atmosphere of that evening when he and his close friend Jonathan were welcomed to the VIP section. When the news came that President Trump was winning, I returned to my hotel with my wife, Chaya, said, "Look what Hashem has done. President Trump, a true friend of the Jewish people, is going to lead the United States." Days later, they received another surprise. Governor Mike Huckabee was appointed ambassador to Israel. Ambassador Huckabee has visited Israel several times with Dr. Joseph Frager. It's clear that the Israel Heritage Foundation plays a meaningful role, not through grand gestures, but consistent deeds. We strive to make the Kiddush a Kiddush Hashem, he said. Rabbi Katz paid tribute to Dr. Frager and his wife Karen for their tireless work on behalf of Israel and extended blessings to his friend Jonathan Burkhan, recently appointed to a key role at the Holocaust Museum. He's a true friend of Israel. His efforts and influence are remarkable. Rabbi Katz also praised Israel minister Mickey Zohar, describing him as a shining figure with a warm smile dedicated to the people of the land of Israel, and honored Ofer Akunis, Israel's consul general to the United States, calling him a man of deep faith and a service to Am Yisrael. Rabbi Katz concluded by recognizing rabbis and guests from across Judea and Samaria. May his evening produce a powerful Kiddush Hashem and bring further blessings to the Israel and Jewish people. Netanyahu says Israel to take over all of Gaza, start aid flows. We don't just accomplish, we do. Israel will take over the entire Gaza Strip, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday as the military announced it would carry on an unprecedented attack on Hamas. By Hamas, they mean Palestinians. Netanyahu said that alongside the increased attacks, Israel will start allowing aid into Gaza again after stopping it in early March in a bid to make Hamas release hostages and surrender. International pressure is mounted on Israel to start aid. The United Nations says malnutrition is worsening, and last week French President Emmanuel Macron accused Netanyahu of shameful behavior and blocking aid. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, head of the religious Zionism party, who had in the past opposed restarting aid, said on Monday there was no choice. Otherwise, the world will force us to stop the war. He also said the military is now operating with greater intensity. This time, the operational method is completely different. Not raids, but rather occupation. Cleansing, genocide. This time, the operational method is completely different. Not raids, but rather occupation, genocide, and holding the territory until Hamas is destroyed. So Matris said, yeah, cleansing, ethnic cleansing, genocide. Well, it's right there out of the horse's mouth, right? Along the way, we're destroying everything that's left of the Gaza Strip, because there is one big city of terror. Well, there you go. Straight for the horse's mouth. Genocide, ethnic cleansing. Oh boy. Trump administration working on a plan to move 1 million Palestinians to Libya. Well, again, we'll see if this happens. It could just be a false ruse, right? Might, move them to a state of bottom of Israel connected to Saudi Arabia, maybe to Egypt, we'll see. Maybe to Neom. The Trump administration is working on a plan to permanently relocate up to 1 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to Libya. 5 people have knowledge of the effort told NBC News. The plan is under serious enough consideration that the administration has discussed it with Libya's leadership. 2 people with direct knowledge of the plans, and a former U.S. official said. In exchange for the resettling of Palestinians, the administration would potentially release to Libya billions of dollars of funds that the U.S. froze more than a decade ago, those 3 people said. So, because of Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration and the death of Gaddafi. No final agreement, the murder of Gaddafi, has been reached, and Israel has been kept informed of the administration's discussions, the same 3 sources said. State Department and the National Security Council did not respond to multiple requests for comment before the article was published. At the publication, a spokesman told NBC News that the reports are untrue. The situation on the ground is unattainable for such a plan. Such a plan was not discussed and makes no sense, the spokesperson said, which might really be true. How are they logistically going to move millions of Palestinians to Libya. Okay, they'd have to do it by plane or by buses, and it would take forever. By ferries, it'd be a logistical nightmare. Okay, so much easier to move them to Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, I think this is just I don't think this is true. I think this is a false story. But still be something to mention in case it does happen. Trump visits interfaith Abrahamic family house, including synagogue, as he wraps up Middle Eastern tour. U.S. President Donald Trump visits the Abrahamic family house interfaith complex in Abu Dhabi in the tail end of his Middle Eastern tour. Trump, along with UAE tolerance minister Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak Al Nahyan, visits the 3 houses of worship, a mosque, a synagogue, and a church. Amazing, Trump says as he exits the synagogue. As he signs the guest book, Trump is asked if he has a message for the people of the UAE. Just a message of unity, just like the purple carpet, right? The unity of the face. Right? The false unity of the face. Universalism, right? When you look at what's just been seen, it's a great unity, great faith. An incredible people, a tremendous leader. He's a friend of mine. Trump responds. Ripple cryptocurrency. Our president, Monica Long, San Francisco, has had the honor of meeting with His Highness Ahmed bin Saeed at Dubai Fintech Summit. We continue to be impressed with the leadership demonstrated by Dubai as it established itself as one of the world's leading hubs for digital assets. It's open season for corruption. How Donald Trump turned the White House into a cash cow. So again, pushing Trump into cryptocurrency, Trump and insider trading. I just want to keep showing you media examples of it. I've read numerous articles about it. But I just want to show you guys that it's still being talked about, still being discussed. Now, this is a very interesting article. Trump luxury hotel project in limbo after alleged forgery by Serbian official. A proposed $500 million Trump luxury hotel in Serbia is up in the air after a government official allegedly forged a document to expedite the project. The New York Times reported late Wednesday night. Jared Kushner, President Donald Trump's son-in-law, and his firm Affinity Partners are seeking to build a Trump International Hotel on a vacant site in Belgrade, where the Defense Ministry building once stood before it was bombed in the U.S.-led NATO air campaign in 1999. The hotel would be the first Trump-branded hotel in Europe. The leader of the Serbian agency charged with protecting cultural monuments admitted to the authorities he had forged a government document allowing the former Yugoslav Ministry of Defense headquarters in Belgrade to be demolished and replaced with the Trump Hotel. The project was intended for approval from the Serbian government last year, even before the government officially moved to revoke the protected historical status of the former defense ministry complex, which heavily damaged during a 1999 bombing campaign by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Serbian government officials said the agency leader, Goran Vasic, fabricated an expert opinion to justify the government's decision to strip the site of its cultural heritage status. Vasic forged a proposal for a decision to revoke the status of cultural property, the Office of Prosecutor for Organized Crime said in a statement. The Times went on to note the note was forgery for a legal basis for revoking the protected status of the compound. Affinity Partners issued a statement denying any involvement of knowledge of the incident. They learned from media reports that a former Serbian government official of no connection to our firm allegedly falsified documents related to the landmark designation of the Belgrade Square project. It read, "We review this matter and determine next steps." The site of Pro's Hotel has drawn protesters in recent months, but most recently marched on the 26th anniversary of the U.S.-led bombing campaign against Serbia. Despite Trump's election in November, members of his family have been actively pursuing foreign business deals. We've already talked about that. So, finishing Donald Trump's Truth Social, we have him going after Kamala. How much did Kamala Harris pay Bruce Springsteen for his poor performance during her campaign for president? What did he accept the money if he's such a fan of hers? Well, how much did Donald Trump pay Kid Rock? How much did Donald Trump pay Hulk Hogan? Why did he accept that money if he's such a fan of hers? Isn't that a major and illegal campaign contribution? What about Beyonce? How much went to Oprah and Bono? I'm going to call for a major investigation into this matter. Candidates aren't allowed to pay for endorsements, which is what Kamala did under the guise of paying for entertainment. In addition, this was all very expensive and desperate effort to artificially build up her sparse crowds. It's not legal! For unpatriotic entertainers, this is just a corrupt and unlawful way to capitalize on a broken system. Thank you for your attention on this matter. According to news reports, Beyonce was paid $11 million to walk onto a stage, quickly endorse Kamala, and walk off to loud booing for I've never performed. Not even one song. Remember, the Democrats and Kamala legally paid her millions of dollars for doing this, no other than giving Kamala a full-throated endorsement. It's a legal election scam at the highest level. It's a legal campaign contribution. Bruce Springsteen, Oprah, Bono, and perhaps many others have a lot of explaining to do. So here we also have Trump Retruthing Spiritual Street Fighter 17, him, wearing some sort of Roman-esque cape with 1776 America in the background. We are taking back our country, and on his lapel, of course, him being Q plus in the QAnon operation, right? So you have the Roman symbolism, emperor symbolism. Yep, again for Trump. Here, all roads lead to Obama. Retruth if you want public military tribunals, just like Melissa Redpill had mentioned earlier. So yeah, Trump sharing Clinton, Trump sharing Obama tribunals. I think it's going to continue. I think it's going to continue and it's going to escalate.